Hi folks, it's middle of August. It's sunny and warm here in Karmiel. Thank God for the breezes on the top of the hill. We just got back less than 24 hours ago from a wonderful visit to North America, and we're settling in, still unpacking, and it's a little bit tense trying to get everything done before Shabbos. This is very important. It's Parsha SHOFTIM. SHOFTIM is about officers, but really about the discipline of society and about how to have an order of society that is not corrupt and yet gives proper power to those who need it to administrate the society. It's filled with fascinating mitzvahs, fascinating requirements for a Torah nation. I could spend hours reviewing it. You don't have that time, neither do I, so I'm going to try and keep it brief. I want to tell you that it was a much greater challenge getting back here than it was leaving. Maybe it's a reverse of desire, I'm not sure. But the airlines drove us crazy on this trip, and yet we survived it, and we're really happy to get back to our home here. Wonderful visits with dear, loved friends. The list is long, and I don't want to embarrass Galia or Charles or Moshe or Boca or Shirley or Sofa or Shai. And the list goes on and on and on. Tanya, of course, and all the dear friends that we have. Seeing Robert was special, of course. This was all wonderful, and as my son Moshe says, what do you miss when you're in Israel and not here with us? And the answer is two things: people and Vidalia onions, which you can't get here. You can't get friends that you've had for 20 years in 6 months. Israel is filled with kind and wonderful people, and we're making dear friends here as well. But we do miss those that we have in Toronto, especially Rabbi Daniel, and the other Rebbeim that we care about so much. Let me get to the Parsha. The Parsha has many, many elements to it, but I'm going to try and stick to just a couple. One of the things is that Israeli society, the society prescribed by the Torah, is one that's unique in many ways. One of them is that the laws that govern society are created prior to having a king. And in this Parsha, we are told about the relationship and the laws that govern the king himself. That is to say, normally, the most powerful individual in a community, tribe, nation, whatever, becomes the emperor, the king, the lord of the castle, etc. And then he decides what the laws are. It's not that way for Jews. It's not that way for a Torah nation. For a Torah nation, there is a king of kings, God himself. And God dictates in the Torah, be cautious of who you choose as king. First of all, he must be one of you. He should be a Jew. Second, he should know that he has a limited number of horses, of wives, of silver, of gold, of all those things that distinguish a man with great power and wealth. Why? He should not be haughty. The king is the only individual described in the Torah who is prohibited from being haughty. And where will the king come from? The king comes, as we know, from the tribe of Yehuda. What is the capital of Yehuda? The capital of Yehuda is Bethlehem, the house of bread. Why? Because his primary responsibility is to make sure the people are fed and well, before he cares for himself or any other issues. Next, in this week's Parsha, there's commandments to avoid sorcery and other forms of behavior where you're seeking special powers beyond those that are given to us by God, which are the real true powers. And so one of the prohibitions is speaking to the dead. Now, this is something that actually impacts all of us, because when family, parents, rebbes have passed on, and we visit their kever, the cemetery, and where they're buried, we have a tendency to want to speak directly to them. They are in the world of truth at this point, that they should assist us in some way, that they should remember us. This is wrong. It is a prohibition. How do we begin the Shemona Esrei every 3 times a day, right? We speak of the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Why? Because we want to remind God of our grandfathers whom he loves so much. And in their merit, perhaps our needs can be fulfilled. Certainly not in our own. And so we don't pray to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We pray to God, and only to God, in the merit of those people. So when you find yourself with a desire to speak to those who have passed on already, it's an error. You should speak to God in the merit of those people. That is to say, in the merit of my grandfather, my Rebbe, my whatever, whoever is you're thinking of, in the merit of that individual, of the kindness and the chesed and the piety and the tzedek, the justice that he did, in the merit of all of that, help me, his student, his child, his grandchild. Please. That's the best way to do this. Everybody makes this mistake if they haven't learned about it. Finally, I want to come to an interesting piece. You know, there's great controversy here in Israel as to whether religious people should or should not be in the army. Perhaps I'll find myself in a little bit of trouble here, or controversy, but this Parsha is very specific about it. This Parsha says, yes, you should serve in the army. Not only that, not only should the army take in religious people, it should be filled with people that are religious. That's who should make up the army, an army of tzaddikim. And in fact, this is an army of tzaddikim. It's an army of people who do not know your name and fight and are willing to give their lives for you. Such a person is a tzaddik in my book. When we go to war, the Torah tells us to appoint a special KOHEN, a priest of war, someone who will spiritually lead the people. And prior to the battle, he allows certain individuals to leave, to be dismissed. And he describes who they should be. The Torah tells us. Anybody who built a home but did not inaugurate it. Anybody who planted a vineyard but did not redeem it. It takes 4 years to redeem. The first time you can eat the fruits of a vineyard is in the 4th year in Yerushalayim. And if you have planted your vineyard and not done that, you're dismissed. Anybody who has betrothed a wife, but not yet married her. Betrothed means kedushin. Married is nisuin. There are 2 stages. We might call it in English engaged, although that's not the real meaning of it, and marriage. So if you're in between those 2 stages, you're dismissed. Finally, an individual who is fearful. What does it mean? Well, Rabbi Akiva sees the direct and simple meaning of it. He says anybody who is cowardly. It can happen to a person. It doesn't mean they're a bad person, but it's a character trait, and it shouldn't infect the other soldiers. Rabbi Yossi HaGalili tells us it's not that simple. God protects us as part of his obligation through the covenant. But what if we violate the covenant? What if we do something that somehow injures the relationship between man and God? In such a situation, a person could fear, because I sinned, the protection that God is obligated to give me, I will not have. And that will make him fearful. What his sin is, we don't know, right? It could be a small sin, but he's such a pious person that he says, I'm no longer under God's protection, I'm fearful. And that can cause his fear. Those are the 4 reasons, right? Somebody who built a home but did not inaugurate it, someone planted a vineyard but did not redeem it, somebody who is engaged but not married, someone who is fearful. The rabbis tell us that it's not about that. The Kohen gives 4 groups of people. And the reason he gives 4 groups of people is because one of those groups is shameful. And he doesn't want to embarrass him. So when the people who have planted the vineyard, or they're engaged, or they built a home, leave, amongst those will be those who are cowardly, those who are fearful. And yet, nobody knows who is which, so that they won't suffer any shame. It's a beautiful idea. With that, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom. Parsha SHOFTIM is a very important parsha. There's much more to be said. But I have to finish unpacking and get ready for Shabbos. If my appearance is not what it should be, consider it a moving man's appearance. So we're back here. It's wonderful to be here, although I miss my dear family and friends there. And we'll be back with you next week. Thank you very much. David Oestreicher from sunny and breezy Karmiel. Shabbat Shalom.